G'day, Mickey here. Today I'm going to do a review on my bike, the 2014 Honda CBR650F in silver. Okay, so I have this bike. I migrated up from a 250 that was written off right here. I was knocked off the bike went skidding down this hill, hit a car, gone. That's it. Absolutely all written off. And I was almost at the end of my restrictions, and when I finally got the payout, decided that the best bet was to upgrade. So I did a bit of research, and you know, you always want to go the full-on super sport, something that's going to rev the tits off and go really fast. And then I thought, you know what, I'm not getting any younger, and you know, I want to commute in every day. I want to be able to go through traffic but still have fun on the weekends. So I decided I wanted an all-rounder, and after doing my research I discovered that the Honda CBR650F had just been released in 2014, first of its kind, new platform from the ground up, and it was relatively cheap. So I'll tell you a little bit about the bike. I'll give you a few stats. First of all, it's a fair step up from the old Hyosung that I had, the 250, as you'd expect. The Hyo was about 27 horsepower. This is 87 horsepower, so a lot of difference there. The weight's a fair bit different. So this is a 220 kilo bike, whereas the little 250 was about 185 kilos wet. But I can tell you what, this bike is still really agile. It's got a low center of gravity. You can still flick it around. You do feel the extra weight, but it's a great migration from a little 250 up to a full-size bike with a fair bit extra power. It's got a 4-cylinder 649 liquid-cooled engine. And probably the one thing that does bug me the most is the exhaust. I love the look of it. It's got a shorty exhaust and it looks really nice, but it is so damn quiet. So damn quiet. But when you're revving it, it does make that 4-pot scream. So as I said, I wanted an all-rounder bike, and this one seemed to grab my attention. It looks awesome. Just riding around, doesn't matter whether it's guys on cruisers or guys that are on full-on super sports bikes, they all stop at the lights or they go past and they give me the thumbs up. They really like the look of this bike, and that's fucking awesome. It's just a shame it wasn't available in black in Australia. The only two colours they had in Australia was the silver, which is the one I got, or white. And the white's not bad, but it's a little bit insipid. Of course, much better if it had been in the matte black. So some guys talk about the step up in power from a small capacity bike like a 250 up to a mid-size bike like a 650. And they talk a little bit about just how much extra power you've got there. And believe me, first time I got on this, I gave it a little bit and I loved it. Fucking awesome. The extra power was fantastic. But you know what? It's not bananas. And it's all in the mid-range. So the torque band is right through the mid-range, which is realistically where you need it in town. So, you know, I'm not going to ride on a track I'm not that good a rider, so I don't want something that I need to rev out to 15,000 RPM to redline. This thing redlines at about 11.5. And you're probably changing long before that anyway. Getting in through the traffic, and particularly commuting on the Monash, so much easier when you've got a little bit of extra power. I'll give it a squirt. So quiet, but when you get the revs up, you get a little bit of that squeal, that 4-pot squeal. The trouble is, if you travel in traffic like I do, if you can't be heard, you can't be seen. So not having an exhaust that sounds loud enough to let people know you're coming is a disadvantage. This particular exhaust goes through 4 to 1, so straight through 4 into 1. What they don't tell you is it goes through a full catalytic converter box. And I can tell you I've done about 4,500 Ks on this, and it's only just starting to get right through that box. And I reckon it's probably going to be until I hit about 10,000 Ks before I reckon it's actually going to be nice. The mirrors are really nice and sharp on this, so Honda have decided to go a bit more down the Kawasaki path. Have some nice decent mirrors, as you can see there. It's not quite as sharp as the Kawasaki's. In fact, the whole lines of the bike a bit more refined, a bit more polished, a bit less sharp, but still has that aggressive sporty look to it. Now the one thing that I had to get used to when I first got on this bike was the seating position. So my old 250 was a full-on super sport position. I was leaned forward, had my guts sitting on the tank most of the time that I was riding. But this bike, far more upright, but my knees are still tucked up, so although you're seated a little bit more upright, your knees are still up, you're still pushing down on the pegs like you would on a sports bike. You still got leverage on the bars, but it's a lot like more of the naked styles. One of the other things I was looking for was fuel economy. Travelling in and out of the city, I'd travel about 85 Ks every day in and out of the city. And the last thing I want was something that's only going to give me 200 Ks to the tank. And this bike has a 17-litre fuel tank, and I'll get 300 Ks out of it easy. So it's got a bit of get up and go without being bananas, and it looks pretty fucking awesome. A couple of things we've spoken about: the sound of the pipe being a bit quiet, and look, the seating position is good, don't get me wrong. Just, I would have liked to be a little bit more aggressive, just a smidge. The seat drains really well, it doesn't collect water in the rain, and this thing handles beautifully in the rain. Even though it's got none of the traction control, it's got no sports modes or anything like that. Let's face it, it's still a pretty cheap bike. It was designed and built, it was designed in Japan, as all Hondas are, by a young team wanting to specifically make their mark. was paying homage to the traditional Honda values and image, but it was made in Thailand. 2015, they've changed the manufacturing and they're going to start making this bike in India. So I don't know whether that's going to improve the build quality or whether it may have the opposite effect. Might be just the same. Now this bike's headlight, it's got a single headlight, but it's also got some sort of running lights at the front, which are LED. And I reckon that's a fantastic idea, because what the LED light does is it just creates that sharpness. So while you have a standard incandescent bulb which provides throw light but isn't very bright, it helps you when you're going around corners at night time, the LED lights provide that brighter blue colour and help to pick out the sharpness. So off the bat, you don't need to get out there unless you particularly want to and get like a head kit or change to a blue coloured bulb. The light is actually not too bad, and on high beams there's plenty of brightness, so when you're travelling out in the bush or out on the open road at night, no problem seeing with the high bulb, the high beam. So from the dash's perspective, you've got speed, you've got a digital rev meter, you've got an A and B trip meter, you've got a fuel gauge, sorry all you Ducati people, you've got the time, you've got the fuel economy, how many litres per 100 kilometres, and if I wanted to switch everything over into miles per gallon, I could just do it. So it's actually set on the dash itself. It's not something that's factory set. So that means that this bike is able to be run in various countries around the world, both miles to kilometres. The one thing it does miss that I wish it had was a gear indicator, because the bike is still so quiet you don't necessarily hear what gear you're in, particularly if there's a fair bit of wind noise. You know, on the lower gears you're going to know what gear you're in, but when you get up to 4th, 5th and 6th, sometimes it's a little bit of a stab in the dark. The brakes are quite good, I found. The fronts are excellent. The rears seem to lack a little bit of guts. I don't know whether that's got anything to do with the ABS or whether that's just the nature of the beast. The suspension for somebody of my height and my size, so I'm not the smallest guy, I'm not the biggest guy, I'm pretty average. I'm about 82 kilo and about just shy of 180 centimeters tall. And I can touch the road in a standing position, which isn't a problem. And the suspension as it is set up out of the factory suits me fine, which is a good thing, because unfortunately there's not a lot on the adjustment side. The front forks are not adjustable, and all the rear fork or the rear suspension has is your preload. So I definitely recommend getting out on one of these bikes and testing it before you buy one. Check that suspension, because if your weight or your weight distribution is a bit different, a bit outside what we've got here, then you'll tend to find that it's not going to suit you because there's no adjustment. But overall, I'm really happy with this bike. I think it's a good logical step up from a Lamb's bike to a mid-size that's adaptable. You don't have to worry too much about having too much power, and that means it's a little bit cheaper to insure as well. So, would I recommend it? Well, the Honda CBR650F gets my tick of approval.